Okay guys, Micron stock and SK Hynix stock both crashing as of filming this video, both down about 5 to 6%. I'm going to talk about exactly what I'm doing now, what I think is the right thing to do, guys. I think you should not panic. I do believe these stocks will skyrocket in the coming weeks and months, and I'm going to discuss exactly why. Guys, please like and subscribe. Also like to remind you guys, I do have a $2 million net worth, $886,000 in stock. So if you guys would like to follow my moves, please click the link and join the Patreon below. But why exactly is Micron and SK stock crashing at the moment? And why do I think we should not panic and continue to remember why we're investing in the stock? For those of you that don't want to stick around, I'll give you the bottom line. Essentially, I think in the short term, people are taking profits. These stocks have skyrocketed, especially SK in the last couple of days, and investors are dumping shares to realize those profits, which we can't blame them. And especially with Micron stock, we have some people rotating from Micron into SK Hynix, which makes sense. People want to diversify. Micron was really the only option here in the US as far as memory investing. Now people want to rotate and kind of diversify. That makes sense. But in the mid to long term, we do still expect demand to continue to be robust and these companies to have immense pricing power. We're going to talk about exactly why in this video if you guys want to stick around. First of all, guys, Micron stock down about 4% currently, SK about 5 to 6% as well. And if you look, Nvidia is actually only down about 1.7. So it's really mainly memory stocks that are getting hit harder. Now, why exactly is this happening? Well, obviously, stocks like SK and Micron, they're going to have a little more volatility. They have a little more beta when it comes to, price volatility. And the S&P 500 in general is dipping right now because of this conflict between the US and Iran. Trump recently announced just a couple of hours ago that he's going to impose these blockades again. Oil is expected to rise, at least at the moment, and this obviously could have a negative impact on the stock market. So of course, in the short term, when the market is dropping because of this macro news, you expect more volatile stocks like Micron and SK to drop even further. That is a short-term issue. In the long term, we do expect that issue to be resolved. Obviously, it's taking a lot longer than originally expected. But in the long term, this issue with Iran isn't going to have an impact on Micron and SKs, the companies themselves, right, in the long term. Also, guys, before I jump into this article, I want to talk about what's going on with Micron, what we expect to happen next. But a couple of points I want to point out here. The life cycle for these memory chips is relatively short. Some experts think it's as short as 2 to 3 years. On the long end, it's 5 to 7 years, and that's because this AI chip stack becomes increasingly complex. Really, the complexity doubles every 2 to 3 years. And because of that, these chips that SK and Micron are currently selling, we really expect them to be replaced at some point in the next, 2 to 5 years. And when you couple that with the fact that Micron has locked in 5-year contracts with over a dozen other companies, really locking in that demand long term, these chips are not expected to last longer than that. So as they turn those chips over, they already have those contracts locked in for the long term. And of course, we expect SK to follow suit as well. And as far as demand, right, most of these chips are going into AI data centers. These are being built by hyperscalers. And we have companies like Google who are printing $84 billion just by issuing 2% of their share count, right? So they're raising tens of billions of dollars. They can use this money to then build out AI data centers, which of course a massive amount of that is being used on these memory chips. So this is really to ease those concerns of people saying, well, things are overbuilt, Meta's building too much, they're running out of funds to build, they can only issue so much debt. But really the point here is that Google can issue 2% of shares and raise $85 billion, right? So that well runs very deep when you have companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple. These companies worth $4 trillion. It doesn't take a lot of share issuance to raise a ton of money. On top of that, we have the CEO of SK Hynix saying that he forecasts 2027 demand will be even greater and the supply constraint will be even worse and will continue beyond 2030. So those that are closest to the build out, those that are at the head of the company, they see what's happening, they see what customers are asking for, they believe that this supply demand constraint will continue for many years. So because of that, despite this short-term dip, despite this intraday 4% crash. I don't think it's time to panic. I don't think anything's changed, from a mid to long-term perspective. And I do think in a couple of months when Micron and SKHY report earnings again, that we're going to see massive numbers. And I do personally believe these numbers will skyrocket. Most analysts have a price target for Micron of about 1,500. It's almost a double basically from where it is now. And I personally think it could triple in the coming 6 to 12 months. Just my opinion, of course, but based off everything we're seeing here. We had the CEO of SK Hynix say that they're planning on doubling output in the coming 3 to 5 years. And their customers responded by saying doubling is not enough. So even if they double supply from the supply they have now, customers are saying that that will not be enough to meet the demand. Now, of course, we have these short-term issues here as far as this geopolitical conflict. We have, the entire S&P dipping slightly. And of course, like I said earlier, that's going to have a greater impact on more volatile stocks like Micron and SK as well. But in the mid to long term, I don't expect that to be an issue. So Micron shares slide as the semiconductor sell-off weighs on memory stocks. Now, SK Hynix decline sends shockwaves through the chip sector. So not only are some, investors selling Micron to rotate into SK, the fact that SK dropped is also spooking some investors, right? People are seeing SK drop, they're invested in Micron, and they're saying, you know what, maybe I should take some profits now before Micron drops as well. But heavy selling in SK Hynix led to a 9% drop in the South Korean index, right? And the speculation here is that with SK Hynix popping after being listed in the US, that investors who own the South Korean shares started selling to take those profits as well, as obviously, some people do want to take those profits in the short term. And that negative sentiment quickly spread across the memory industry, dragging lower shares of SanDisk, Western Digital, Seagate, and Micron. The broad-based move reflected growing investor caution after a strong rally in AI-related semiconductor stocks over the past year. Of course, we have short positions and insider sales. Michael Burry is shorting Micron, as we talked about last week in this video on this channel. Personally, I think Michael Burry is a clown. I think he essentially sees a chart go up quickly and he says, oh, that went up too quickly. It's time to short it. But things are more complex than that, guys. Let me know in the comments if you agree. There are some reports that the CEO of SK Hynix has been selling more shares more recently. So could that be a bearish factor? Possibly, right? It's possible that, maybe he thinks, this is the peak. It's all speculation, right? Obviously, if you're the CEO and you hold a lot of shares, you're going to be selling shares all the time. So it's hard to say, really, but we will keep an eye on that because that does matter, right? If the CEO is dumping shares, we want to keep an eye on that. That could be somewhat of a signal. Of course, he could just be trying to cash in some of his chips as well. So the S&P 500 down about 0.5% at the moment. Of course, these volatile stocks going down a little bit more. But guys, the thing we want to point out here is that this is all short-term speculation, right? The fundamentals of these companies have not changed in the last couple of days. Their revenues continue to skyrocket. Their demand is expected to continue to skyrocket for the next couple of years as well. So really, this is short-term noise, right? This is not fundamental change. We don't expect demand to fall off a cliff in the coming weeks and months. To the contrary, we actually see demand continue to skyrocket in the coming years. As we said, even next year, we expect this shortage to be even worse. So with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you selling Micron and SK? Are you, refusing to panic and holding, potentially buying more? If you guys want to see the moves I'm making, consider joining my private group. Link in the comments. I'll show you guys the method I'm using to analyze the stocks I'm buying and the method I'm using to grow this $1 million portfolio. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.